After finishing Resident Evil 5 with my friend, I said something that in hindsight was a perfect prophecy for the chaos to come. I told him I'm honestly more excited to play Resident Evil 6 now because RE6 looked like Chapter 5 turned up to 11, like Call of Duty Resident Evil. In my head, that was a compliment. I was ready for the spectacle. I was ready to step into Chris's campaign embodying the John Soldier archetype. Then we actually started playing. Cut to Leon Kennedy looking into the camera with a straight face and saying,
"We're going to China."
Cut again 2 minutes later, where my friend fails a single button prompt during a plane crash sequence, and we plummet into the earth in a ball of fire. That tonal whiplash, that specific mix of high stakes melodrama and the press X not to die slop is Resident Evil 6 in a nutshell. It's a game that abandons its identity in the first 5 minutes, picks it back up and throws it away again, replaces it with something louder, bigger, and more confused. My opinion is that Resident Evil 6, by inadvertently alienating its core fanbase and chasing a wider audience, gave rise to what we now refer to today as friend slop. To understand why RE6 feels the way it does, you have to look at how co-op fundamentally changes the DNA of horror. In my previous analysis of RE5, I used an analogy that I think holds up perfectly here. Traditional Resident Evil, like the RE2 or RE4 remakes, is like an A24 psychological horror film. It's about dread, atmosphere, and the intimacy of being alone in the dark. However, co-op Resident Evil is a slasher flick. When you play with a friend, you are the girl in the horror movie screaming at her friend to get the zombie off her back so she can reload her shotgun. It's an overwhelming spatial kind of horror. This is where the friend slop genre was born. Games like Resident Evil 6 and later things like Lethal Company or Phasmophobia aren't necessarily deep. They aren't trying to change your life with narrative. There are playgrounds designed for social interaction. You're calmer with a friend, you joke more, you take risks. The game becomes the background noise for your friendship. RE6 is underappreciated because it's one of the most expensive, high production value versions of friend slop ever made. Capcom knew exactly what they were doing by putting Leon's campaign first. It's an olive branch to the veteran fans, a desperate attempt to say, see, we still remember how to make it spooky. For the first hour, it almost works. The atmosphere is thick, the ammo is scarce, and the zombies actually feel like a threat. My friend, a die-hard RE fan, was actually feeling immersed. We reached the gun store lockdown, a segment he affectionately called Noctur on Toten, and for a second, it felt like classic survival horror with a modern coat of paint. But RE6 can't help itself. It's a game that's allergic to subtlety. The moment we hit the jump the shark sequence, where you literally have to shoot a TNT barrel to blow up a giant shark zombie in slow motion, the match slipped. Leon's campaign is horror cosplay. And if Leon's campaign was an olive branch, Chris Redfield's campaign was a tactical nuke dropped on the franchise's traditions. This is where my friend and I had our biggest split. He despised it. He kept saying this isn't Resident Evil, this is Dead Space 3. I, on the other hand, loved it. I was playing as John Soldier, killing John zombies. It was exactly the Call of Duty Resident Evil experience I had predicted. But why does it feel this way? To understand Chris's campaign, you have to look at the industry in 2012. This is an era where Japanese developers were terrified of losing the Western market. Take a game like Binary Domain, which came out the same year. It was a Japanese developed, Western-facing squad shooter that felt like it was desperately trying to speak the language of American military games. RE6 was doing the exact same thing. Chris's campaign is a very deliberate attempt to translate Resident Evil into a language that Gears of War fans would understand. Capcom was chasing the spectacle over intimacy dragon, trying to capture the Modern Warfare audience while still keeping the RE branding. The result is a campaign that feels like Black Ops 3 Nightmares mode, or in other words, a generic military shooter with a zombie skin pulled over it. Everything was fun to this point until we got to Jake. Jake's campaign is where the ambition of Resident Evil 6 finally collapses under its own weight. It starts strong. Jake is Wesker's son, which is the ultimate nostalgia bait move to get fans invested into this new character. My friend was actually excited because he holds Wesker's character in such high regard. But then the repetition set in. RE6 is structurally broken because it asks you to play the same timeline 3.5 different times. By the time we were hiding from Ustanak, who we deemed to be Mr. Y, we weren't scared, we were tired. My friend's frustration peaked when the game started reusing literal cutscenes from Leon's campaign. He told me, "There's only so many times I can play the same game over and over before it starts getting tedious. This is a fatal flaw of RE6. It's a jack of all trades and a master of none. By trying to give the player everything, horror with Leon, action with Chris, and a weird experimental brawler stealth hybrid with Jake, it's too long, it's too bloated, and it's too desperate to be liked." There's a lesson in RE6 about how media expands its audience. Usually when a franchise tries to go mainstream, it dilutes what made it special. Look at a game like Persona 5. On paper, it's a niche visual novel with dungeon crawling. It shouldn't be a global phenomenon, but it became one because it took its weird, specific identity and pushed it to its absolute limit. It didn't try to be Call of Duty to get more players. It tried to be the most Persona game it could be. Resident Evil 6 did the opposite. It looked at what everyone else was doing and tried to copy it. By trying to alienate no one, they ended up making a game that felt like it didn't fully belong to anyone. The core fanbase felt betrayed, and the wider audience just went back to actually playing Call of Duty. The tragedy of RE6 is that underneath the bloated story and the "we're going to China" dialogue, the actual gameplay systems are incredible. The movement system, the sliding, the rolling, the stamina management, the contextual melee is actually deeper than almost any other game in the series. If RE6 were released today with modern sensibilities and a tighter focus, it would probably be hailed as a mechanical masterpiece. But in 2012, it was unexplained and buried under a mountain of QTEs and cinematic fluff. The inventory system is the antithesis of horror. It's designed for flow rather than tension, but as an action game mechanic, it works. It's a game that is technically impressive but artistically confused. So where does that leave us? Is Resident Evil 6 a bad game? No. It's a fun, chaotic, high-budget piece of friend slop that is infinitely replayable if you have the right person sitting next to you. But it is a necessary failure. If RE6 hadn't been the bloated, over-the-top mess that it was, we would have never gotten Resident Evil 7. Capcom needed to hit the wall at 100 miles per hour to realize that they had lost the plot. They had to see the declining social clout of the RE5 and RE6 era to understand that bigger isn't always better. We didn't get to finish Ada's campaign together. My friend was too exhausted by the repetition to keep going, and in a way, that is the most honest review I can give the game. It's a game that offers you the world, but by the time you've seen half of it, you're ready to go home. Resident Evil 6 is underappreciated. It's a game that falls short of its ambitions, but accidentally succeeds as a hilarious, spectacular, and utterly unique co-op playground. Just maybe don't let Leon fly that plane next time.